listening to it. Thank you very much.
I'll move to it.
Erev Tov. Rashi quotes a medrash regarding Korach and his group. And the medrash says, "Ma ro'a Korach lishtut kazu." What did Korach think? Now, the interesting point here is that the medrash calls it a shtut, foolishness. Doesn't call it a rishus, an avera. It doesn't call it by the name of transgression against the Torah or against God, so to speak. It calls it by the name of a shtut, that it's a foolishness. So what's the foolishness? So the foolishness lay in the fact that, so to speak, what did they think was going to happen here? Did they really think, did Korach really think that he was going to be Moshe's successor? And if he did, he was foolish. Because Yoshua was around, the Shivim Skenim were around. What did he think? Now, Chazal point out here that in the original group, so it was Korach, and it was Dosan V'Aviram, and there's a man there called On Ben Peles. Who was On Ben Peles? We don't know. He never appears again. And when the Torah describes that Korach and his group were swallowed up, I think we lost this. When the Torah describes what happened, On Ben Peles is never mentioned again. So we don't know what happened to him. The Gemara teaches us what happened to him. The Gemara says a famous discussion. Shlomo Melech said in Eishes Chayil, Chachmas Noshim Bomsa Beisa. The wisdom of women was able to build and preserve her household. So the Gemara says, Zu Eishes On Ben Peles. That was the wife of On Ben Peles. What was the Chachma? The Gemara says. She said, On Ben Peles comes home and he says, we're making a revolution and I'm on the side of Korach. And we're going to depose Moshe. So she said to him, you're foolish. What's in it for you? If Moshe wins, you don't have any benefit. If Korach wins, you don't have any benefit. So why should you get involved in a machlokas from which you will have no visible benefit? he nevertheless was still willing to go. So the Gemara portrays for us that the people with Korach came by in the morning to pick him up, to bring the incense. So the wife of On ben Peles sat at the door to their tent, and she uncovered her head. She uncovered her hair. Now, all the people that were involved with the rebellion against Moshe were very observant Jews. They were very religious. So they therefore could not enter the tent because she was not B'tzniut. So they had to pass up on On ben Peles. And he therefore was saved because of the fact that he didn't go to be one of the people that brought the incense and ensured their destruction. That's the Gemara. So there are many lessons to that. One lesson is that your priorities are wrong. You don't want to go into a tent because you don't think that the woman is properly covered. So that's your degree of piety, and you're willing to destroy Moshe and the Jewish people because of your own personal ambitions or hopes. That's an imbalance. There's an old Jewish anecdote that the Medrash says that the arbe, the locusts, didn't go on Shabbat in Mitzrayim. They didn't come on Shabbat. So Paro said, Rak hoser me'olai samake hazeh. Paro now said, take away this makkah from me. This is the worst one. So the joke was, a frume makkah is the worst. A makkah that observes Shabbat, that's the worst makkah. Because that is a complete revelation that the person doesn't get it at all. They don't understand. You can't see what the Torah's priorities are. So that's what happened with On ben Peles. He was saved by his wife, and his wife saved him by showing the foolishness of the people who supported Korach, that they're not willing to enter a tent that they consider that the woman is not dressed properly, but they are willing to make a machlokas against Moshe and split the Jewish people and bring about such destruction. So that's part of the idea that the Medrash says that it was a shtut. It was an absolute foolishness. The foolishness is that people don't behave rationally. People don't think it through. People are emotional. Korach made a good speech. Dosan Vaviram said, Ki sistore oleinu gam historer, who told you to be our leader? Populist slogans, which always reverberate in society. People always are vulnerable to them. We need not go into examples currently, but they abound, both here in Israel and in other places in the world, where great foolishness takes place simply because of the fact that people don't see it clearly what is really going on. There's another later on in Chumash Bamidbar in Parshas Pinchas. So the Torah, when it counts the Levim again, so the Torah makes mention the Bnei Korach lo mesu. The children of Korach did not die. So there's a medrash again, the Gemara, that they shout Moshe Emes v'Torah Emes. But we see that the children of Korach had an eternity. They are one of the 10 authors of the Tehillim. On Rosh Hashanah, before we blow the shofar, Islam Matzeach Livnei Korach Mizmor. Korach himself has an eternity, because he's mentioned over and over in Tanakh. One of these Shir Shal Yom is Livnei Korach. It's a remarkable thing. And in effect, that's what it means in Korach lo mesu. It isn't only that they didn't die, but that the entire family and tradition. And the Gemara tells us, Rashi also quotes it, that Shmuel Anovi came from the Bnei Korach. He's a descendant. So what is it? And that's what all the Meforshim say, that that's the foolishness. That's what Rashi says. Why did he do it? Because he saw that from him there would be generations. For him there would be great descendants. And he said, if I have a grandson that's Shmuel Anovi, so you can just imagine what I should be. So I should be greater than Moshe. And according to certain interpretations, he said, my grandchildren will be greater than Moshe's grandchildren. Because we find in the book of Shoftim that Moshe had a grandchild that was a priest to Avodah Zarah, the Pesel Mincha. So that's a shtut. That's the foolishness. To allow yourself to be fooled. To take your own ambitions and desires and to allow yourself to be fooled. To make that sort of reckoning. I must be great because greatness will come from me. Now, why greatness comes from some people and not from others is because everybody has freedom of choice. And therefore you can't tell and you can't prescribe what will be later. It's one of the reasons the Gemara says that one should never disinherit a child, even if the child is worthy of it. The Gemara says, because you don't know what it's going to look like generations later. How do you know? So again, that's an act of arrogance, of hubris, to think that I must be great because something great is going to come from me. Well, he said, Bnei Korach lo mesu. The children of Korach didn't die because they stayed away. So the heroes of the story are those that stayed away. Those that didn't jump in. The temptation in a machlokas, God forbid, is always to jump in with both feet. We want to prove I'm right. And that is the worst danger that can exist. So the survival of those of the story of Korach is the survival of those who were able to stay away, even if they stayed away for the wrong reason, like On Ben Pelis. They didn't come to pick him up. But his wife is the one of Chochmas Noshim Bonso Beisa. She's the one that preserved it. Rabbi Chananya ben Akash Omer Rotza Kadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakel Sis Yisrael Lefichach Hirba Lahem Torah Mitzvot Shenemar Adonai Chafetz Uman Tzidko. I don't know what happened. I may have hit something.
I don't think so.